After the release of Kick-Ass, there was instantly a huge amount of speculation about a movie sequel.
Yeah.
How tough was it to get it off the ground?
We knew from the opening weekend that we'd get a sequel because the movie cost pennies, it cost nothing. In film terms, it cost a ninth of what Iron Man cost, and it made back 100 million and then 140 million more on DVD and Blu-ray. So we knew a sequel was happening, so Matthew was secretly talking to Jeff Wadlow back in September 2010, and the script got written a year later and everything. So it was always happily happening, you know, and Universal and Lionsgate were both vying for it, you know. But like, I didn't realise you're supposed to pretend it's not happening. So you have to pretend there's some difficulty, you have to pretend everybody's too busy and all that kind of stuff to build anticipation.
So if you say everyone's too busy for Kick-Ass 3, for example...
I don't know if Kick-Ass 3 is ever going to happen.
You've got a new scriptwriter kind of coming in this film, and a new director for that matter. I mean, what were your first thoughts when you read Jeff's script?
I was really excited. Well, my first thought was I didn't know it was going to happen. I was so excited that we were actually going to make a second one. I thought there was still a lot to tell in the story in the Kick-Ass world. And Jeff did a really good job of writing new arcs for our characters to go, because, you know, you didn't want to see the same Red Mist or the same Hit Girl, because you saw that in the first movie. So he wrote these beautiful arcs where I become the villain and Chloe becomes this little lady. And I read it and I thought it was going to be fun and action-packed. I was really excited.
There's an inspired transition of the Red Mist into the motherfucker.
Yeah.
When you came up with the idea for the look and the costume, did you spare a thought for the poor actor Christopher Mintz-Plasse?
I love the idea of Chris playing the motherfucker because he'd been known as McLovin up until that point. Like, everybody kept, even on set, people would say, "Oh, McLovin's on this afternoon," and so on. I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, it's great for Chris because he's so iconic as McLovin that people remember him, which is a brilliant thing for an actor to have created a character like that. But I thought, I want Chris to be known as something else, you know, like a badass, and that's where the motherfucker came from. And I would love it if he becomes as well known as the motherfucker as he was for McLovin. I want people to have him stored on their phone as motherfucker instead of McLovin, you know. It's
fun because in the first movie, Chris D'Amico didn't know who he wanted to be. He wanted to be Red Mist, and he wanted to be, you know, his father's son. But in this one, he loses his mother, he lost his father, he knows exactly who he is, which is the motherfucker.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there was some stuff from the comic, that, especially with your character, that had to be cut because it was kind of
It did, yeah. There was a rape and a murdering of a dog that is just a little too much for this kind of world, because this still is a comic book world, and the violence is, even though it is bloody and, you know, it is over the top and it is cartoony in a way that if you put a rape scene or like killing an animal in there, it kind of just brings the tone down. It's a little too dark.
There's things that Mark and John have to do in a comic book to get a response from an audience that I don't have to necessarily do in a movie, because they're dealing with approximations of people. They're drawings, right? So there's automatically a separation. I've got real live people in front of my cameras. So to create that emotional response, I didn't always need to go as far.
And you had the line even acknowledging the dog thing, where you're like, hey, wait, come on.
That's what it was, sort of a little nod to the fans of the comic book. I wanted to say, look, we know this happens in the comic. We know we don't really have to do it. So let's have fun with that idea.
Well, that's always the thing in films, isn't it? Killing the dog is like way worse than killing
You can't kill the dog. Come on. You can kill thousands of people, but you can't kill a dog.
And finally, like with the original Kick-Ass, will a decision be made on a follow-up for Kick-Ass 3 based on the opening weekend this time round for Kick-Ass 2?
Oh yeah, I mean, if this tanks, there won't be a Kick-Ass 3, of course, you know, but I don't think it will. I mean, the tracking on it's huge. Like, I don't know how tracking even works, but it's really accurate. I mean, they can pretty much tell you how your opening weekend's going to go like 3 weeks before it opens, you know. You know, it looks like this is going to have that Austin Powers to Austin Powers 2 kind of relationship, where the first one did well enough, but then did really well on DVD and everything, and then there's that combined audience who seem to be coming for the new one. So I'd be really surprised if it didn't do great, you know, and we get to do the last one. What will be weird is if it does spectacularly well and Universal want to do Kick-Ass 4 and 5 and all that, because I'm definitely ending it with 3. Like, I'm not going to say if it's a happy ending or a sad ending, but there is an ending and there's no more after Kick-Ass 3.